Hey everyone, I'm meteorologist Aaron Tuttle, and today I'm going to give you a presentation regarding severe weather. I kind of give you some information about it, how to protect yourself, some resources you can use to keep you and your family safe. Plus, stick with me, and I'm going to give you a great deal on a brand new futuristic, state-of-the-art type of storm shelter that you've never seen before to provide shelter for your entire family, not only for severe storms, but even for earthquakes, hurricanes, home invasions, a lot of multiple use for this particular storm shelter, and we'll get to that here in a minute. So once again, thanks for joining me. Be sure to share this information with all of those loved ones that you know, your friends, and anyone else you can think of that might be able to use this, because weather is a big thing for most people, and seeking shelter and taking safety precautions is in everybody's repertoire. So without further ado, let's get on to the presentation. I think you're going to really enjoy it. So again, it's called Severe Weather Coverage, Information, and Resources. Now, wherever you live across the country, everyone's going to be a little bit different on how they cover severe storms. Now, I'm broadcasting live out of Oklahoma, and we do storms like no one else does storms. It gets crazy around here, and for good reason. And we'll get to the reasons why those here in just a second. So let's get on with the presentation. So the first thing I want to kind of tell you is who I am. So a little bit about me. I'm a degree meteorologist from Texas A&M University, gig 'em. Whoop! So I did get a degree in meteorology. Worked in television for 12 years. And now what I do on the side is I run AT's Weather to help people. That includes streaming live severe weather coverage, providing weather on social media, and I also have a free weather app, AT's Weather to Go, that I want you to check out. I think you're really going to enjoy it. It has some really cool features that no other app can provide for you. So let's get on into the presentation as far as storms. Who sees them? Well, guess what? Everybody sees them here in the U.S. Even Alaska sees them. Even Hawaii sees them. Most people that see them, Florida. If you guys down in Florida, you know what I'm talking about. You get storms all the time. It can be sunny, clear 1 minute, and then thunderstorms and rain the next. So here's a look, kind of a general idea what you can expect year in and year out. I just grabbed 2018, and you can see across basically from the Rockies eastward, there's a lot of action. Along the Rockies and west, not a whole lot of action. Things are mostly quiet in that part of the country. The top right indicates all the tornado touchdowns for 2018, the hail on the bottom left, and wind on the bottom right. Your take home from this is by far and large the biggest severe weather threat when it comes out of these three categories is damaging wind. Now there is a watch and there is a warning that issues from the National Weather Service. Now a watch is a very large area. It can cover almost an entire state if it wants to, or several parts of different states. A warning is basically a very small region, usually covers about a county. It indicates severe weather is approaching about an inch in diameter as far as the hail size, or winds greater than 58 miles per hour, or even a tornado. So one of the things I'm going to talk about right now is flash flooding. Why? Because it doesn't get a lot of attention, but believe it or not, it actually causes the most fatalities for all weather events, even combining lightning, hail, and tornadoes, even here in Oklahoma. So it's something you want to take very seriously. Now, most will die in their vehicle trying to navigate through flooded roadways and waters, because a lot of times the roads aren't even there anymore and they get flushed away downstream. It can happen in non-severe thunderstorms, so it can take you by surprise. So the motto here is turn around, don't drown. If you see that water covering the roadway, don't even risk it, especially when it's moving pretty quickly. It takes about 6 inches of rapidly moving water to knock you off your feet, carry you downstream. If you're in a big SUV and you think, oh, I've got this covered, not the case. You get a lot of force, and it causes the vehicle to actually get lifted up and carried. It takes about 2 feet of water for the biggest vehicle, only a foot of water for the smallest, and you find yourself in a really bad situation looking for help. Now, lightning is another serious thing to take into consideration. And the protocol has changed over the years. You may have heard some old sayings like crouch down, but you know what? Not anymore. The National Weather Service says just get out of Dodge. You don't want to be outdoors during a lightning storm. Here's a look at fatalities going back from 2008 to 2018, and you can see about an average, we'll call it about 25, maybe to 30 on average. You can see there's a lot more men than women when it comes to lightning fatalities. Now, there are some reasons for that, and here are a few of those. So if you look at daily and weekly routine activities, it's usually headed to and from a vehicle, believe it or not, walking to and from home, We got yard work thrown in there, even checking on animals. For work-related activities, you got a large portion of it from farming and ranching, construction, roofing, lawn care, that kind of thing. By the way, the odds of being struck are not even as good as winning the lottery sometimes. It's over 1 million to 1, and that's in a year's time span. Now, in a lifetime, about 1 in 14,000. But keep in mind, your odds will increase if you doing some of these outdoor activities versus those that stay away from that kind of stuff. So these are, again, some of the most deadly activities during a thunderstorm. Leisure activities, believe it or not, that's the majority of it, just having fun or goofing around. For that particular case, we break it down. That usually means water-related activities, sports, camping, riding, that kind of deal. So what are most people doing when they get struck by lightning? Well, they're engaged in outdoor activities, including sports and water. Is it safe to seek shelter under a tree? That's another big question. Or to get out into the open? No, that is the worst places to be. You don't want to be in either of those spots. Matter of fact, way back in 2012, about half of the victims were near trees when they were struck. Now here's an example of what that can look like. You can get a direct strike right from the lightning bolt itself. You can get a side splash or flash, we call it, when the lightning travels down the tree, the trunk of the tree, and strikes you there. You've got ground current. It may hit a tree nearby, then carry under the ground. You got conduction, which runs right along a fence line. You even have a streamer, which is just a piece of the lightning bolt, not even the full thing. That may strike a tree nearby you, but a little side arc can get you as well. So the best bet is go indoors, because there is no protection outdoors. It's unpredictable. There is either death or severe permanent neurological disabilities in more cases than not. It can strike about 20 miles from a storm. The longest lightning strike in history, just for a little trivia for you, 200 miles, and that occurred in Oklahoma back in 2007. Now that was not cloud to ground. That was just cloud to ground. Then that can happen, but what we're focused on is the cloud to ground, which is where we live. Now, it strikes about 280 people a year, and like I said, about 28 people on average will die from it. So don't stand out. Move away from trees and others. You have absolutely no place to go. And the reason why that is because if you're all grouped together and you all get struck at once, there's no one left to call for help. So you spread out. That way, if something does happen, someone can make the call to get assistance. Now we're going to shift gears on into the supercells. And the supercells is what produces those big, nasty tornadoes, all right? These things can last for hours. They're very easy to see because they will have what looks like a cotton ball on top of it. We call that the overshooting top. So this right here is what you want to look for in a distance in a nice hard-shaped anvil area. And the smoother this is, in other words, not so, just kind of hard to make out detail, but we're talking hard edges, that's indicative of even a stronger thunderstorm. So if you see that, stay away from it because it's going to have some very large hail. A lot of times you can look down here in the part of it where it's not raining, there's no hail, and you'll see we call the wall cloud. The wall cloud will be spinning, and sometimes out of that wall cloud becomes a tornado, and that's what we're going to focus on here with this presentation because that's obviously very important. Before we get to that though, here's a look at what hail can do. Again, 1 inch in diameter is considered severe. Golf ball, that's about, will do most damage as far as property is concerned, roofs, cars. Once it gets bigger than that, of course, like this picture shows, you're in trouble. Fall speeds around 100 miles per hour. And if you get some of those large hailstones, it can trash a vehicle. Not only the windows, but also the paint job and pretty much anything else. The vehicle can get totaled. So stay out of those big hailstorms. Now, the biggest hailstorms are right here in the mid part of the country. If you were to drive right up I-35 corridor from Texas on into Nebraska, you'd find it. Now, you can see it kind of cuts off rather quickly along the eastern sides of the Rockies. And there's some other areas here in the southeast. But the biggest hail, we're talking over an inch in diameter, is in that location. And even the biggest hailstones are still located in that part of the country. Now, damaging winds and tornadoes, okay? This is kind of a touchy subject sometimes because most people will swear they had a tornado and what they really had was wind damage. You remember that graphic I showed you a while back, all those blue dots and very few red dots? That's what I'm talking about. Straight line winds from a storm can produce as much damage as a tornado, and it's more widespread. Okay, a tornado is far less common and requires a very specific ingredient list to form, and that's not always found in severe storms. There are many days where we don't have just the right ingredients, and that's okay with me, and it's probably okay with you. Now, how you can tell the difference? Real easy. Straight line winds, everything is blown in one direction. On a tornado, you've got stuff twisted and turning, and one point in north, one point in south, east, west, all in between. That's the easiest way to tell the difference. Now, the tornado count, when we look at the last several years going back, you can get kind of a variance as far as output. We've seen as many as about 2,300 almost just a few years ago, to as little as about 900 when you look at the total count. Now, in 2018, this little black line here represents about 1,200 tornadoes. Now, here's where things get interesting. You can see that most of these fall close to that 1,200. In other words, that's the average. Now, even when we take these numbers, the Storm Prediction Center has to go back and remove the multiple counted ones. In other words, sometimes one can be counted twice. So once they clean things up, it looks more like this, which is a statistical average of, again, right around 1,200 for our yearly count. And even last year, once we took away some of those multiple reports, it dropped us down to 994, just to kind of give you an idea of how these things are kept. And the database goes back well into the early 1950s as far as reliable reports. Now, speaking of which, this will go back into the 50s, and we'll show you the trend of tornadoes since that time period on into today. If we take that mean of 1,200, you can see over time, sure, we have some peaks and valleys, some lows and highs, but it never differentiates or never gets off that 1,200 mean. In other words, the trend is flat, and that's what we like. Now, there are some years we get a lot of tornadoes, followed by years we get hardly any tornadoes. So there is a little bit of an ebb and flow, but that's typical if you look back through time. The last few years, though, we've had some greater variability, but we've also had some much stronger El Niños come in and some other climate and ocean type things that have occurred to allow a little bit of greater variability. But the good news is the trend for those strong and violent tornadoes is down, and that's what you want to see. It's not up, it's the opposite direction. If we go all the way back in time, we count these. This is a line that slopes from left to right in a downward fashion. So we're at actually the lowest in history over this time scale of 50, 60 plus years, where the tornado count continues to decrease. And I'm okay with that when it comes to these violent ones, because they're the ones that do the most damage and causes the most fatalities. So we used to average around 56 of those. Now we average around 34. That's a trend I think we can all agree on is good. Now, this is what I call the baby tornadoes. These are the EF0, and we'll get to the scale here in a minute, but you can see eastern sides of the Rockies onward, there's a lot of them. If you look out west, you still get some over the mountains. So that is a misnomer if you think tornadoes cannot happen over mountains or valleys or bodies of water, because they can happen anywhere. Just the weather conditions aren't as favorable across the Rockies. You also can see this right here, this graph, goes all the way back to 1960 onward. You can see a ramp up, and especially headed to the 90s, of more counts of tornadoes. Now, a couple of reasons here. EF0 tornadoes are the most popular, most common ones. In other words, they're the easiest to produce. Mother Nature doesn't have a problem producing EF0s. You don't have to have ridiculous kind of ingredients to get that to happen. Plus, we have better density, more population, more eyeballs to the skies, more storm trackers, better instrumentation. Doppler radars come a long way. I think all that's kind of helped to show that increase as those things have progressed over the last 20 years or so. But you've also noticed they flattened out here in the last, say, this is about 2005 onward. The trend has been flat with a slight tick back down. So I think we kind of maximize how that was going to be documented. The trick here is now what happens in the future, because these have been mostly supercell type tornadoes. There's a new version of a tornado called a QLCS. It's on squall lines. They usually weren't counted, but now they're going to start to be counted. But they're typically EF0 or maybe an EF1, so these numbers might go back up with time as we try to struggle with how to put that in the database. Now, if you look at EF1 tornadoes, it's very similar to EF0. Again, mostly east of the Rockies, a lot of green on the map. The trend, though, for here is flat, so no increase for a long period of time. We like flat trends, even like the downward trends. This is where you get to EF2s. And again, east of the Rockies, still a few out west. Even California has seen a couple of EF2 tornadoes. But you can see by far and large where all the yellow resides. Now, once we hit into the closer to the violent tornadoes, that's where kind of things diminish, which is good, because we definitely don't want those. But the trend is also flat, so we like that as well. And as we head into the EF4s, more sparse, more scarce, a downward trend that is flat over the last few years. And this graphic shows you it's about, the scale's on a scale from 0 to 16, and it's hovering right around 5 or 6 per year on an average. Once we get into EF5 tornadoes across the country, now we're only down to an average of about 1. And it's a very flat. And look at this this graph here. There's a lot of missing years. We don't even have a good database for these EF5s because they don't exist. They're very rare to find in nature. But you can see how they're clustered across the Central Plains, parts of Iowa, and down here across southeast over Alabama. So those are some of the favored areas for those very violent tornadoes. And those are the kinds that do really a lot of damage. All right, tornado distribution per state. If we look at Texas, they get the most. Well, it's also the largest state, so it makes sense. Kansas gets 80. Oklahoma will get about 56. Alabama 42. Florida gets 59. Colorado gets 46. And yes, even out here in the West, they get some, and in the Northeast, they get some. So no one is immune from tornadoes across the continental U.S. Now, if we look at the distribution, and these are pretty much all tornadoes, you see some hot spots. Colorado to Kansas, central part of Oklahoma, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, we've got parts of Florida. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But once you factor in those really strong ones, we're talking about EF4 or EF5, and these are the biggest ones, the ones that do the most damage. 3 hot spots, Iowa, Oklahoma, and again in part of the southeast. So Tornado Alley isn't so much a very small area. It's always been a large, broad area with just little hot spots thrown in, depending on which category you're looking at. Now, if we look at tornado occurrence, if you were to guess when do we see most tornadoes over the course of our year, and if you had guessed May as the peak, well, pat yourself on the back because that is when we see the most. June is a very close runner to that. July, they really start to break off as far as the numbers, and it shifts to the north. So during our spring season, March, April, May, and early part of June, it's in the southern half of the country. Once we go from the latter part of June to July to August, it shifts to the northern parts of the country, and then we try to kick some of those into Canada. But we never escape tornadoes completely. We can have them any time of the year, including December and January. Now, if you figured out the time of the day, you thought, oh, hey, how about with the maximum time of daytime heating? You would be correct. We need that heat and instability, and that happens during the 4 to 5 o'clock hour. So that's where this peak resides on the graph. And then as the sun sets, the peak goes down, and less tornadoes occur, or the ones that were going die out. So here's a look at tornado facts. Regardless of the climatological average used, you can go back 50 years, you can go back 30, you can go back 5. Doesn't matter. The good news still stays the same. And that's about 70 to 80% of tornadoes are EF0 to EF1, and those are easily survivable with minimal damage. Once we get to the EF2s, that's a pretty significant population, for about 12 to 22%. But here's the best news of all. Those violent ones, the 3, 4, and 5, which cause the most fatalities and damage, they are on the lowest scale, about 5 to 8% per year across the country. So the good news is we keep those violent ones at bay, and we can deal with these smaller ones and the weaker ones. So for example, here's your damage scale. So when we say the EF rating, a 0 is wind speeds from 65 to 85. You don't get much damage with this, just some small limbs, maybe a few shingles, kind of a deal. Once you get to EF1, which is wind speeds of 86 to 110, you get some moderate damage. So significant roof, windows broken, exterior doors, mobile homes overturned or badly damaged. That's a key point here. You do not want to be in a mobile home ever when it comes to a tornado. Do not ride out a storm with a tornado in a mobile home. They're not built to withstand those types of stressors and wind speeds. EF2, winds up around 135, considerable damage. Roofs are torn off well-constructed homes. Homes will be shifted off their foundation. Mobile homes completely destroyed. Large trees snapped or uprooted. EF3. 165 miles per hour. Entire stories of well-constructed homes destroyed. Significant damage to large buildings. Weak foundations can be blown away. Trees will actually start to lose their bark. Then once we get into the F4 and F5, there's really hardly much difference because once you get in that upper category of F4, pretty much most of the structure's gone. We're talking complete trees and buildings and strip malls, everything like that. And the F5, when we get up to 200 to even as much as 300 miles per hour, indicated on Doppler radar from some of these researchers, engineers decided once you get over 200, structure's integrity is pretty much gone. So this is a damage scale, not a wind speed scale, in the sense that it doesn't matter if it's 205 or $295. The damage is going to be the same. So in this particular case, in this picture shown, asphalt's ripped off the ground, and even on a home, the slab can actually be wiped clean. So here's an example of that picture here in the bottom right. There was a home here. The slab's still here, but everything else is gone. Now, the good news is if you have a storm shelter that is anchored above ground into the slab, it will not disappear on you. And I've seen cases like this where the slab was clean except for the central part of the home or the closet where the family took shelter. So you can survive these stronger tornadoes, and there will be factions of a building structure that does remain. Again, you need to adhere to building codes, pick a good home buyer, all that kind of stuff. Now here's an example of a home you would not necessarily want to take shelter in. This is not anchored to a slab. It's not anchored to anything. It's sitting on top of basically cinder blocks. So if you're taking shelter in a home on this type of foundation and you think you can be safe in the basement with these cinder blocks, you're completely exposed. So it would not be a good idea. Now, a vehicle, never a good idea. You get a strong tornado and you're going to be in trouble and you're going to look like this and you won't walk out of it. Mobile home, same thing. This was a mobile home. It's no longer a mobile home. Again, don't put yourself in that position. Overpass, pet peeve for all meteorologists across the entire country. Don't do this, which is don't seek shelter under an overpass. For one, it offers no protection for a tornado. For two, you get some hail on your car and that's all you're worried about, but you don't know if a tornado is coming along with that hail, you're in trouble. Other thing is, maybe there's a tornado that doesn't quite hit you, but maybe it's just across the road and there's emergency management personnel trying to get through to assist them or save lives, and you've just blocked the entire interstate or highway and no one can get through. Do not do that, because what you've just done is signed a death warrant for everyone else. And if that tornado comes for you, guess what? You're not safe, which means you've just done the same for you. The wind speeds actually increase underneath these structures, called the Venturi effect. So it's not a safe place to go, and it's also against the law. So do not do that. Get insurance. If you find yourself in your car driving into a storm, first off, use a weather app like mine or any other weather app. Just it has a radar so you know what you're driving into in the situation that may occur. Hail, wind, lightning, tornado, whatever it may be. And find an exit to find a shelter. That's your best bet. Don't get caught off guard. So here's a look at storm shelters. So this is when you're not in your car and you are at home. What to do? Well, all four of these are great examples that most people have. They have the old school outdoor kind, which is kind of how things usually started. Now they've got the garage floor kind, where the door slides open under your car. They got the above shelter kind here on the bottom left, and they also have the outdoor kind of above ground with the rebar all reinforced so that it does adhere to engineering standards for FEMA guidelines. So all these are safe. Now there are some caveats here because each one comes with both strengths and weaknesses. You can have a problem with flooding. You can probably have a problem with, critters that may be around because you didn't clean it out or take care of it. You can have an issue where your car was parked over the doorway and you can't get in, or maybe you're 8 months pregnant and you can't get down to that hole. The above ground one here, one of the issues that you'll need to keep in mind is ear protection. You need to have either range ears from like the gun range, or just those little ears you can put in there temporarily to help block out some of the sound, because it will be very loud when things hit that shelter. Now, I came across some guys that were ingenious. They developed the Vortex Vault Shelter, and they took it to Shark Tank on ABC, and Mark Cuban loved it. So he personally invested into their company, and this thing actually telescopes upward. So Life Lift Systems has developed a really cool idea. I've never seen anything like it, and I've seen a lot of storm shelters. You don't even have to open it up all the way. You can just open the doors. The kids can crawl in during a panic situation, close the doors. It's bulletproof. Make a phone call the police, whatever it may be. When you bring it all the way up, you can roll your wheelchair right in it, just like Tim did here in this picture on the bottom right. So it's very user-friendly for the entire family. Now, I think it's a revolutionary design. It's got multiple uses. Earthquake protection, home invasion protection, of course the tornado protection. It's indoors, it's away from hail, debris from a tornado flying around if you're seeking shelter at the last minute. Flash flooding, don't have to worry about that. It's easily accessible for those with physical disabilities, limited mobility, pregnant mothers, children, pets. Very easy to get those. into the room next door to you than it is to take outside. Greatly reduces anxiety. And this right here is the biggest key, because I've met so many people that have PTSD that have experienced a tornado. So what this provides is a familiar surrounding. You can either have this in the guest room or in your own room. So that greatly reduces your anxiety. So all of a sudden you're at a much different place. You're not having to go somewhere where you never go, except maybe one time a year or once every 2 years. This is something you go every day. So already you're calm, cool, and collected. The refrigerator's right next to you. You want to grab a drink, you can do it. You've got the TV on. You can actually see it from your room. Maybe you're in your room watching it. Close the door at the last minute. It just provides a completely different environment to seek shelter from a tornado. And these guys are great. They dropped a car on top of it just to show that the shelter takes no damage. Took it to Texas Tech. They got it checked out there, and they shot all kinds of stuff at it, and it passed all their tests. So again, you don't have to worry about critters, no clutter, no problem with water. Matter of fact, since you're in your home, you got Wi-Fi service the whole time. You got better cell phone coverage, so you're not underground. It follows FEMA guidelines. It's got a 60,000 pound crush rating, rated for an EF5 tornado. And yes, that's winds well over 200 miles per hour, up to 300 or so. So far, it's been documented on top of the radar. It's bulletproof. Not many people can say that's a selling point, but that definitely is. It has an internal battery USB charger for your family, which is great because you know how electronics will start to die in when you need them. Plug them in, you're good to go. And it's also safe for valuables, and these guys will throw anything in there for options, including a gun rack. For those of you folks that want to partake in that. Now, right now, there's 3 design options to choose from. There's a slope here on the top right. That you can use in your bed to watch TV. Otherwise, it lays flat. You got the one here on the bottom left that's just, it stays flat. It's kind of just for the kids, just to crawl in real quick. And then you've got the full telescoping size of which goes all the way up to 57 inches. So it takes just under a minute for this completely thing to open up. Some people open up ahead of time when they're expecting tornadic storms that day, and others will just wait and see if they need it. So just kind of up to you on how you want to use this. But they've got 3 price points on here to help you out as to what you can afford, because they want you to be safe. So what you can do, if you contact them and mention me, you'll get another discount. Since I've been working with them on behind the scenes and how this has evolved, I'm really impressed. So we've kind of partnered up. I said, hey, give my followers a discount. So they said, okay, let's do it. So if you've got your phone with you and you're watching this on a computer, you can scan the barcode to get the discount right now. Or you can visit their website, lifeliftsystems.com. You have to do a /pages and then /AT's weather, and it'll open up a page where you can get that discount. Or you can just call them the old-fashioned way, 866-957-5123, and talk with Tim. That only takes one event to change the course of your life, and that's kind of what they're talking about when it comes to either a home invasion or a tornado or an earthquake. All that kind of stuff matters, and this is going to protect you on all those levels and more. There's probably many other usages that we hadn't even thought about. So when it comes to protection, you've got the shelter, you've got a safe place to go. This is one thing I want to warn you about. Don't depend on outdoor sirens to get you there. They're used as a last resort. They malfunction. Doesn't always mean a tornado is moving towards you. It could mean it's in the other part of the city or the county that you're in. Each emergency management office has different policies for activation. They're not triggered by the National Weather Service. So there's really no rhyme or reason, and it all depends on who's flipping the switch. It can be used to supplement the Weather Service when a tornado is spotted, but a warning hasn't been issued. And on occasion that will happen. The Weather Service may not see a tornado on radar yet, but then someone does, and they can let the emergency management county know. But it's only really good if you're outdoors. You've got better technology for that, including apps, your local television, radio, that kind of thing. So with that in mind, switch gears and kind of provide you a little bit of meteorology so you can be an armchair meteorologist and go, hey, I know what that is. I know what that looks like. I know to take this serious. So here's a look at that. Remember that supercell storm I showed you that produces a tornado? This is what it looks like on Doppler radar when you flatten it down in a 2-dimensional view. This right here is the supercell. All right. Now, right in the middle, this little spot right here, I'm kind of circling, that would be that overshooting top, that cotton ball on top. All right. So kind of look downward, and you see this bright pink and purple. That's the hail core. That's where you don't want to be in these storms. Second place you don't want to be is down here in the hook. This is called a hook echo. So when this thing wraps around, it's indicative that the storm is spinning, creating a mesocyclone. That creates the wall cloud, which then creates the tornado. So here's some terminology: hook echo, donut hole, debris ball, and rotation. You're like, well, that's something. It is. this kind of technology has really provided us to be able to see things like this now, since Doppler radar has advanced in the last 10 to 20 years. This little circle right here is the donut hole. That's where the tornado is actually occurring and forming. Now when the tornado hits something, trees, homes, whatever it may be, cows, it turns into a debris ball, which means the radar can see things that are not raindrops and then highlight that. So that's kind of lets guys like me know, meteorologists, that says, hey, you know what? Not only is it producing a tornado, is doing some damage. We need to take this real serious. Now, meteorologists can show you a couple things. They typically show you the reflectivity, which is what I just showed you a moment ago, which is this example in the top left. But they can also show you the velocity data, which is the winds in the storm. So what they do is they try to co-locate the area, and they look for red and green coming together, and it's called a couplet. All right, so it's red and green coming towards and away from the radar. When that happens, that's what they're looking for, the tornado. Now, two new functions factor into this is a tornado debris signature and differential reflectivity. Now, they won't probably tell you this or show you this that often. They're going to have to be really geeky to do this, but it's for your own good and for their own good if they do it. Because when these values drop into the blue or the gray area for both of these, that means pure 100% confidence. Yes, tornado. B, a strong tornado doing damage, and we've got debris kicking up. So these are all confidence levels. So some of you may want to know about storm chasing. It's crazy. I used to do it, and then I stopped. It's the insane goal of catching a tornado. Most days you won't see one. Too many inexperienced thrill seekers are out there now. Everybody has an app on their phones. They all think they're the next storm chaser. It is extremely dangerous. It is glamorized, and the closest video wins. You've seen that on these different networks, on television, cable news, and they're showing the best video they can. Well, you've got to get really close for that to happen. My last storm chase was like that. May 31st, 2013. At the time, it was registered as the largest tornado on record and probably even the strongest. The Weather Service went back on the damage survey, though. Because it was over more of an open area, they couldn't find anything structure-wise to go along with the wind speed Doppler-wise. So they reduced the rating. So even though it's not considered an EF5, Doppler radar says it was, so it was a big one. Here's a look at the May 31st, 2013, where I was chasing. This little intersection down here at the bottom right, I blew through this. This is the tornado looking right at me. 8 seconds later, this cone goes right over. So we were 8 seconds slower. I wouldn't be here today. That's another reason why that was my last storm chase. I had enough of that stuff. It went from fun and to not so fun. And here's a look just out my window of how that looked like with a snapshot. Again, this is just the cone. This isn't actually the outer parts, which we were in. So we were actually in the tornado. That was just the worst part of it that would have taken our lives had it rolled on top of us. So here's a look at that video. I'm going to go ahead and play this for you. And you can watch all these cars come in our direction. Well, we had been chasing this for a while. We normally go east, and then you stop and you set up a camera, you watch it coming toward you, then you get back in your car and you go east again. That's usually the protocol, because most of these storms move east-northeast. Well, there were way too many chasers that day. They clogged up the roads. People were driving 20 miles an hour going east. Well, if this thing decided to pick up speed, that wasn't a good play. It would have killed us. So we decided to go south with the idea of then going east, then going back north to catch it again. But what happened here next has never happened in all of my chasing. The storm went due south, and then it decided to come east, right toward us. As it did so, it got bigger, got stronger, became multi-vortex, and like I said, it was a harrowing experience.
Large tornado coming right at us, moving due east. It's moving south.
South.
All right.
Traffic. Let's go.
So this whole time,
Back up, back up, back up.
I'm holding the camera,
Move! Move!
and we're trying to get out of a cluster of chasers. And we've got to move. So there's the tornado here in the middle.
Yeah, just look at that, how it drops out like that.
And it becomes multi-vortex with several little dancing tornadoes around it. So there's 3 of them there at that moment. We're in a Suburban,
Now we get south of it.
driving about
We're fine. Right now it's due west of us.
he had it pegged to the floor. But as the storm got closer and we got in the tornado circulation, pulling air from the south to the north, and we're trying to go against that, the max speed we can get was 60 miles an hour. Now on a Suburban, you know that at 60 miles an hour, or with
drops
the
south.
pedal
Now
to
we
the
get
metal,
south.
you can go a lot faster than 60. That's as fast as we can go.
Right now it's due west of us.
Watch the map, please. I don't think these guys realize that,
Sorry, hit the button that starts it over on this computer. When I touched the volume, it ended up repeating, so sorry about that. But it's only about a 60-second period where it gets back to where we were.
We're fine. Right now it's due west of us.
watch the map, please. I don't think these guys realize that,
It's getting rain wrapped.
I know.
Okay.
I don't like it.
Dudes.
We gotta go into it.
Dude, we gotta get south.
I just keep going faster. I don't know if I want. You may want to stay on the north side of this.
Dude, no, we gotta get south.
I can't.
Just bust south, man. We've got to go around these. We gotta get east. There's an east road a quarter of a mile. We gotta get, man. We gotta get. Go around them. Go around them. Idiots. Go, 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 man. Go. Go. Floor it. Floor it. Go. Go. All right, we got a quarter mile wide tornado. About about 300 yards to our west northwest. Rotating rain currents. We are now in the outer circulation. We are now in the broad tornado circulation. Rotating rain currents all around us. I've never been this close to my life. You've got to get out of here. We are now in the tornado. Hang in there, buddy. Hang in there. You got to get out of here. Large tornado. Get on the road. Roll it up. We got debris lofting in the air. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. We just gotta keep going. We gotta keep going. Keep going. Keep going. We're almost out of it. Oh my goodness. We're almost out. But you keep going as far as you want to go. East road option is in a quarter and a half mile. I say just keep going south. Okay. It's always good to go south. Yeah, it's back to our northwest. We're on the outer circulation still. But if it gets stronger, it can pull us back in, so we just got to keep going.
That was intense.
Oh my gosh.
So, my poor chase partner, Hans, you know, I honestly thought we were going to die. And so for me to keep it together and pretend like we were going to make it was one thing. Record it was another. And then narrate it a third. But, yeah, that was a harrowing moment for sure. So that's kind of an experience of what a storm chaser can go through when things don't work out so well. So I retired from storm chase in that aspect. I let others do that for me. And now I shift gears and actually run a live broadcast studio here where I track severe storms on radar. I pass along National Weather Service information, storm reports from the field, live storm chasing video from my storm chasing team. So I'm much happier doing that, believe it or not, than the stuff before. Now, this is kind of a picture of what it looks like. This bottom right is kind of like what my studio looks like that I'm working on. And then up left, top left was when I was on television for so long, and that's typically your big studio with the green screen. So I've got the same kind of aspect here. And when I broadcast on YouTube Live and Facebook Live, it kind of looks something like this. I got a ticker at the top and a ticker at the bottom. And I'll pull in and Doppler radar, and we'll track storms, and I keep everything on a low keel when it comes to telling people how to seek shelter, so that I don't get them to panic. You know, I keep their anxiety low, their emotions low. That way they can think more logically and make sound decisions. But kind of, I took the experience I've used in 12 plus years broadcasting from the local news, and just apply it here now in what I do today. So, warning resources. I mentioned you to have multiple options. Again, NOAA weather radio, great option. Everybody should have it. They're very good now. You can program them specifically for your area. They're usually reliable. Sometimes those towers do go down. Now, if a warning is not issued, they won't do you any good for that particular warning. Most warnings get issued because most tornadoes are spotted on radar, or the operator at the time is there to see it. Sometimes maybe he's got to take a break. Maybe he's the only one running the desk. So there are human influences, factors at play. We're not all perfect, so these things can slip through the cracks on occasion. So again, it's usually a good method. TV and radio, once again, as long as your guys are on top of the ball, can be a very good method, real-time information. However, let's say they're covering 2 tornadic storms and you live where a third one is and they don't get to you. What are you going to do for that information? You want it, you need it. That's kind of like where my app comes into play. It's called AT's Weather to Go. It used to fill in the gaps and get your attention. The weakness, though, for mobile apps, as you know, across the board, though, is they're dependent on your cell service or Wi-Fi service. You got to have one of each or both, whatever it may be. So here's an example for me, for AT's Weather to Go. It's free to use. It predicts tornadoes up to 15 minutes early warning. In other words, it will alert you that a tornado is coming before the National Weather Service even issues a warning. Why? Because it takes proprietary algorithms, latest radar data, and then actually predicts the development of a tornado, and then it gives you the warning about that. That gives you more time to prepare. Then when the actual warning comes out, you can go, hey, you know what? I already knew about that several minutes ago. I've already got my family in the hidey hole. So it's a really good tool. I suggest you use it just for that feature alone. But it'll let you know when lightning's in the area or storms are approaching. You get direct access to my live weather coverage and your emergency management officials here in Oklahoma, for example. Now, here's the deal, and I'll work to see if I can get other emergency managements elsewhere across the country. But since I'm based here, I started in Oklahoma. Now, there are up to 16 locations you can enter to get specific custom alerts for your home or town. You can do vacation home. You can do, if you got 2 or 3 kids in different schools, put every school on there, your grandparents, whatever it may be, because you will be notified for those specific locations if a tornado is approaching, and I'm pretty sure you'd want to know that to get them to take action in case they're not paying attention. So on the back end, users are able to send me pictures. Take a picture of tornado damage, big hail, with their name, photo, location, date, and time. On my end also is I can highlight users. I don't know who they are, but I know where they're generally located. And I can say, hey, you need to evacuate this area, or there's a tornado coming for you. And not just me, but also the emergency management that I've partnered with. So it's a very good, useful tool. So check that out. It's called AT's Weather to Go. It's Apple and Google Play. Now I have a plan. Always have a plan in place. Stay weather aware, check the forecast, know what the threats are. If it's hail, if it's wind, or if it's both of those, if it's tornadoes. Have an emergency supply kit, a NOAA weather radio we talked about, a good old-fashioned map maybe, for example, identification so people know who you are, shoes, big one here. Most people don't even think about that. The number one injury after a tornado goes through is people walking on debris with nails all over the place. You've got to have adequate shoe wear. Car keys, TV, radio, smartphone, tablet, flashlights, papers. Now this is a new one here. Now, if you get the LifeLift Systems Vortex Vault, it'll have a battery charger in there. But if not, you already have a shelter, get those little lithium-ion batteries. You can even start your car with them nowadays, and they can power all kinds of electronics for your family. Key is, wherever you are, get low. You want to get to the lowest floor, whether it's a home, it's a business, Cover yourself, whatever you have around you. Get away from windows and exterior walls. You want to be in the most center part of any structure. I'll give you a little tip here for the engineering standpoint, at least for homes. The weak link in any home is the garage door. And you're going, why is that? Well, because the garage door itself is not built like the rest of the foundation framing of your home. So it's usually the first to go. Once that caves in, that allows pressure differential in the wind to then lift up that corner of where the roof is, and that starts the snowball effect of destabilizing the structure of the home and allowing different walls and stuff to collapse and tear down. So, that's why you do not want to take a shelter in your garage unless you have a storm shelter in there. But definitely stay away from that aspect of it, and windows and walls. All right, now if you're in your car, you says, well, hey, what do I do? Well, first off, like I mentioned before, don't stop on an overpass. Have a smartphone with you so you at least know what you're driving into or what you should be driving away from. And if the storm is coming and you had no other choice, drive south. Now, I know in my case, I gave you a situation that didn't work out in my favor, but that was a freak event. 99% of all supercell type storms that produce tornadoes move in a east and northeast fashion. So your best bet is always typically to go south. Remember, we went south and we eventually got out of it, but we were too close to it though, and so it almost took us. But if your vehicle is, don't ride it out. You got to find a shelter somewhere. That's the bottom line. So that is a look at the presentation. I want to thank you for watching. I hope it was educational, informal, or something you could share with your friends and family and your kids, and everybody kind of can learn. Now, again, look at those contacts I gave you if you're interested in the Vortex Vault. Otherwise, I appreciate your time today and learning a little bit about Mother Nature. The good news is, like I said, most of these tornadoes are very small, so they're easily survivable with adequate shelter, and that's where we like them. We don't want those big tornadoes, even though they're the ones that get all the news attention. They are very few and far between. Well, that is my time here for today. I want to thank you again for watching and participating, and have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we'll talk soon. Try to look me up on social media or kind of my website, and we can chat that way as well. Take care.